Welcome to another
Hi.
episode of About Her. I have the wonderful Tanya with me. Tanya, thank you so much. I am very much looking forward to our conversation today. And thank you for being here. And I would love to start by asking you to tell us anything about you that just comes up that wants to be shared.
Well, first of all, thank you so much for having me. I'm Tanya, and I have founded Emerald Goddess International, and I am in Cancun right now. And yeah, new chapter, new life, a lot of different things going on. And yeah, I don't. More will come up in the conversation. I'm just
I'm
like, there's a
sure.
lot. So I'm having trouble being like, like, what do I
I know this is kind of the most difficult part of the conversation because, like, how do you sum up your life in a few sentences? That's why I always say, like, share whatever comes up, because I think it's just very beautiful to start a conversation like this for the listener as well, with like, okay, who am I feeling into? And one thing that came up for me when we connected in the first place, I was like, Emerald Goddess. Okay, I have no idea what she's doing, but that sounds great. So I would love to start here and ask you if there is a story that you want to share behind that so beautiful name and what you founded there.
Absolutely. Cool. So I was in a PhD program and I had finished my comprehensives and academically, like I had been working the last 11 years to get to that spot, right? And when that started to become extremely dangerous, abusive, toxic, dangerous, I knew that I needed something else. And I was laying in bed one day, and so I love my research, right? I didn't want to let go of my research. And I came to the conclusion that the university doesn't, academia does not own ideas, right? So they do not own my rights or my creativity. So I decided I was going to turn my dissertation into a creative nonfiction. So I was laying in bed one night and I was working on putting this idea together for a grant, a writer's grant. And I was like, "What's a good title for this?" And I looked up and my wall had just a few collages that I had made maybe about a year before that at the time I was just making. It didn't make any rational sense to me. So it looked like I just had a bunch of random shit on my wall. And I looked up and I just saw the words Emerald Goddess and it just hit me. And I said, that's the title of this book. Okay, perfect. So my research was looking at, again, it's a whole hard to distill, but matrilineal healing traditions in colonial South India is an easy way of summarizing it. So I was looking at goddess healing cults and the ways in which colonialism impacted female led healing traditions. Anyway, so I was like, Emerald Goddess, okay. But then it started to take on a life of its own as I started preparing to get in my car and drive 7,000 kilometers with nothing but books and papers and a few things. And yeah, I honestly don't even know entirely where a lot of this stuff came from, right? Like Cancun, I just knew, I was like, stuff was just coming out of me. It was like Emerald Goddess. Okay. Okay. It's not just the title of a book, right? It's a whole business. It's a whole framework. It's a whole, I don't even know, but it's just been expanding and growing. And I'm still working on a book, but Emerald Goddess International is turning into this really beautiful creation. And I'm in this beautiful house in Cancun, and I'm launching Cancun intensives. So I was hosting a retreat in March, and the retreat itself, in my mind, I was like, 'cause I went to a retreat the year before, and it was supposed to be a wellness retreat, and it was Girls Gone Wild. Like they were doing tequila shots every morning, and I was like, "What's going on here?" Anyway, so I was like, "Okay, cool. Like I'm gonna host a retreat," and in my mind, it was this polished, perfect, you know, thing, but the core intention that was driving it showed up in completely different ways than I could ever even have imagined. And so it ended up just being one woman that came, and it ended up being amazing and wonderful. And so I've decided that that's actually what I'm going to focus on, is not these big, huge retreats, but like one-to-one intensives here in Cancun. And I'm planning January, I'm going to be going to Borobudur in Indonesia. So I'm going to do that as well. And yeah, I don't know. That was a long-winded answer. Came from, and she's still just in motion. And then like, so I've always been drawn to the goddess traditions, particularly Indic goddess traditions, right? And so what mostly comes to mind for people are, like Kali, Durga, and these are really powerful, Chinamasta maybe, but Tangi is a tantric goddess that in all my years of study, I hadn't really come across much. And when I was laying in the hotel here in Cancun, when shortly after I arrived, I was listening to a podcast on, the 10 tantric deities, and Matangi really stood out to me. And I was like, wait a minute, how come I don't know more about her? And the more I looked into her, she's actually like the Emerald Goddess. So yeah, that's kind of cool. So I've been doing more work with Matangi, and yeah, I'm really just trying to combine like my lived experience, in with trauma, with abuse, with systems, family courts, academia, religion, all of that, with the last 11 years of academia, with the entrepreneurial. I had a very successful business in my 20s that my ex-husband destroyed, to make sure that I didn't get anything, and that's a whole other story, you know. And so I started from scratch again in the women's shelter with my son, with nothing but the clothes on our back. Build another business. And at 33, I just had this, I was like, I need to go to school. I need to go to university. So I started my undergrad and thought, I'm going to be a lawyer. And then I took religious studies classes, and I was like, this is awesome. I love this way too much. So I knew right away I wanted to do a PhD. My undergrad research, South and Southeast Asian religious traditions have always just drawn me. And
Wow.
yeah. So a lot of the stuff that's out there right now in this, so I stepped out of academia into this wellness world, or this online world, and it's been jarring, alarming, and a lot of what is being pushed and peddled is offensive and dangerous. And
What a journey. The golden thread that comes through for me is you trusting the signs of the universe. They seem to come very clear, like with the Emerald Goddess, as well as with your move to Cancun, as well as with a few other things you just shared. And this courage of trusting without logic, already having proof that that might be the next best step, or that there are kind of like outweighing which is the best road to take. I feel like you're jumping in, and then the universe kind of makes it happen, makes manifest what is the next best step for you. And I think that is something so initially beautiful in a world full of logical research. And nothing against research. I totally understand that you love it, but you know what I mean is this, like, so often I feel with academia, or the way society is built or has been built over the last few hundred decades, is that we try to control by kind of using logic everywhere, and therefore making sure that there is nothing that we have overlooked, and that everything's kind of safe and we know how all things operate. And that's just not how the universe operates. So there's always going to be that moment of like, I don't know, and I can logically explain it. And I love that the journey you shared is so much highlighting this and how things move from one to another, even though there's like no idea how it's going to work out, but then it does. I think
it's fucking terrifying.
yes, it does. But I don't think you can kind of try to work yourself around rock bottom and hurting with logic or the way that we kind of are taught to kind of make decisions. So I love that very much. And then I think it's very beautiful that you focus on the one-on-one or on the like intensives. And also something that comes to me that I would love to like ask you for how you're seeing this is that we're going back to a retreats, like in-person things, but also smaller things. So you seem to kind of be ahead of the trend that's slowly evolving in the spiritual world or in this like wellness bubble that I'm moving through with my business. Is that it's going to be much more in-person events. It's going to be much more like not 200 people in a big hotel room being coached by the one person above, but like actual intensive, being like really raw and very close to the person that you're working with. And that is so beautiful.
Yeah. Well, and it's also like moving through this world because I mean, I had partaken in my 20, I was born and raised a Mormon and then I left the church and then, had a whole life or whatever. And especially in my 20s, when my daughter was stolen, I was really struggling with forgiveness, right? Because everybody was telling me, you need to forgive, you need to forgive, you need to forgive. And I'm going, I'm 23 years old. My life has just fallen apart. My dad has just died. My daughter has just been stolen. I'm trying to work through, trauma and all of these things. And I'm being told that I'm the problem, you know, just forgive, just forgive. And so I dove really deep into Buddhism, and meditation. And now at 43, the only person that I really needed to forgive is myself, because I carried so much of that for so long. And now that my daughter's 23 with a baby of her own, and I just look and I'm like, I was just a fucking baby. I was just a baby trying to carry all of this on my shoulders, And so spirituality is really important. And, even as, coming up on 11 years clean and sober, spirituality is the core of that. Although it's the patriarchal, hierarchical structures that have co-opted what it is to be spiritual in so many ways. And then people bypassing the shit out of their actual healing and calling it spiritual. And so I just plopped into this world with only ideas from my 20s and the last, 11 years of academia and being like, what the fuck is going on here? Like it's scary. It's scary. And everybody like I had a business coach for a little while and nothing has worked for me. And I'm starting to see why. But it's like, get your free funnels, get your this, grow your big gathering, do all of this, and I'm like, I'm not, quit trading your hours for dollars. And I'm like, but like I really want to work with people. Like my goal isn't to create a course to just put out there and then never talk to anybody, right? Because that's where the healing happens, if not for all of us, that relational. And I mean, I'm so grateful that we have the technology to be able to do this because this is also really important. I just saw, I did all this stuff like coaching, retreats, da, 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 and I'm like, but nothing is working because what I'm trying to do is so much more complex, nuanced, and in depth, right? And so my coaching isn't just like a traditional coaching package, I actually, for these intensives, it's like, okay, I want to meet with this person for the month before they arrive, and work with them to assess, like what is going on. And because so much, like I would even say 98% is like our external environment. And we're all being told, look inward, look inward, look inward. But we actually need to pay attention to the external environment as well. And I am actually living proof of that in the flesh and blood right here. Because a year ago, 6 months ago, I was seriously on my deathbed, but there was nothing wrong with me physically. The doctor said, oh, there's nothing wrong with you. And I'm like, but I'm literally dying. and my therapist is like, just regulate, just regulate. But I'm like, if I have to regulate every minute of every day just to survive my life, what the like, that's not healing.
Not
That's
right.
just running in circles. And so through the course of the first year and a half of the PhD, I was leaving frequently. I was flying to Victoria to see my daughter. I was India, Japan. I just couldn't be. And what I found every time is even 2 to 3 days being that distant from it, I could see it. Because when we're in it, it's so confusing. And even, I'm intellectual. I've been through women's shelters, courses, research, all the things on domestic violence. I know all this stuff. And my body was responding to it in real time. My intellect was, this is grooming, this is isolation. A year and a half, I tried to get help from other people in this institution, right? And everybody around me, even my therapist, well, she not so much. My therapist, she helped a lot, but in certain ways, I was spending so much time and money with my therapist just trying to survive this environment. And she did say something really important at the time, and it's not all flowers bloom in the same environments, right? And
Also,
yeah, so I don't even remember where I was going. That was a tangent, but
love that you share it because I definitely have fallen for the same thing, being clairvoyant since childhood and being able to travel anywhere. I was my whole life. I live in the city that I was born in, which sounds so boring, but it never was because I was traveling everywhere. Like, in my mind, I was everywhere. And I was like, I don't need a year here or there. I don't need to travel all of these miles. I had fear of flight, so that was kind of a good way of, of kind of explaining that to me. But I've always felt my life was very rich and very much expansive in every direction because of everything that I'm able to see and to go. But then when I've hit my first long distance flight and I landed in Thailand and I was like, oh my gosh, this is beyond any other holiday that I've taken here in Europe. This is like mind blowing, life changing experience. And on that moment, I had like the same reflection as you, like, oh, okay, like if you have that much of a distance, it actually matters. So I think the both is true at the same time. And that's something that I've always come back to is that there is not the one truth. So it's very true that your environment shapes you to a huge amount. And then there's also the truth that you cannot change all of your problems by changing your environment because you're taking yourself with you. So essentially, you kind of always need to find the middle point in both.
yeah,
And then that might mean this and then that, and that might mean the fluctuation or whatever. So it's very different for everybody. And that speaks to what you
yeah,
said, what I know so many people experienced in this like spirituality, healing, coaching world is you go through all of that programs, you go through all of that frameworks and blueprints and all sound so good. And then you wonder like, why is it not working for me? It seems to be working for everybody else. I think it's because
and
it's so complex and there's like we're especially with having a very intense or traumatic period in this or another life, you have a lot to decondition from. I always say, like, as a highly sensitive, I have to decondition from 10x the stuff that other people need to decondition from because I get 10x the stuff every second of my day. So it's not working, but it's you're like one on one, if you have accountability, if you have someone who is actually there for you, who understands you, and who lovingly calls you back, just like, hey, do you see what's happening here? Like, but in a way that is not go to module 3 again.
yeah,
Bullshit, It's like, hey, do you see that? That is playing out right now. Again, one of your patterns. And so
yeah,
the actual work with people, it's so crazy that we're trying to escape that in spirituality. And I've definitely fallen for the same thing and then wonder why it's like not working. It's funny. It's actually funny.
I think one of the worst things that I heard in this last 6 months from someone that was trying to get my money,
Mhm.
essentially. This person sent me a like, sent me, a follow, started messaging, started commenting, trying to sell me their big package. And I said, I'll do the free thing first, see how it goes. And I did the $11 thing, see how it goes. And in this time, she keeps messaging me, essentially trying to get me to join her really expensive program. And I was literally rock bottom, no money, I literally thought I was going to be sleeping in my car until a friend helped me out. And this woman says to me, just take money off a pedestal. I haven't eaten in 2 weeks. What are you like? You're trying to get me to give you $10,000. And I'm being just honest and vulnerable that like, I'm not in a position for that right now. And instead of stepping up and doing exactly the kind of thing that you just said and addressed, right? Like, and then she unfollowed me, and I was just like,
Wow.
okay, like there's so much of that out there, and yeah, when you are intuitive, empath, sensitive, especially when we're younger, we get taken a lot because we're so trusting and so naive. And then, but also see through the shit. So, I mean, I don't know how many times my whole life, you're crazy, you're hysterical, you're irrational, you're impulsive, you're irresponsible,
The
the
list
list
goes
goes
on.
on and on and on and on and on. And now I'm just like embracing it. I'm like, yeah,
Cool.
I am. Like when I left, everybody is, you're crazy, you're crazy. My daughter the other day, she said, Mom, I'm not gonna lie. I honestly did think you had a mental break and you did go crazy, but I actually see the logic in this now. And I said,
Mm.
yes.
Love that she's able to reflect that. I think that shows such a like greatness that a lot of people never develop, So it's really cool to be able to like reflect that and say like, hey, I didn't get it, but now I do.
Yeah, well, I didn't get it either. I like the whole Cancun thing.
Well,
So I knew that I wanted to come to Mexico because I grew up driving from Saskatoon, Saskatchewan to Tijuana, Mexico with my dad as a child. And January 11th, which is also something that's interesting, I remembered. My dad died 111, January 11th. And 111 literally guided me the whole way here. Even my very first truck. So my dad was a trucker. And my very first truck stop that I stopped in the US, I looked out my window before going to sleep and there was a semi truck with my dad's name and 111. Like,
unreal.
yeah, yeah. And now I've trailed off. I forgot what I was saying.
Yeah. Well, I feel the sense of the universe are always there. Just most times we are not observant enough, not open enough, or we're not trusting enough to actually see them. But it's like you say, it's more obvious. It couldn't
Always.
be more obvious. The name of
And
your dad and then the number, like, come on.
yeah. And the other day I was working all day and okay, it's time to make dinner and eat. So I came down, made dinner, was just about to eat, put on a show, and it just hit me. And I was like, okay, I can't even I can't even focus on what I'm trying to do right now. And my brain is moving faster than my mouth, and I totally forgot what I was
It
saying.
will it will come back. It's interesting because the same thing happened to me too today, and it normally doesn't. So I don't know. Weird things are happening in the last week, so we see.
That's what it was, the
Ah,
animals.
cool.
So 111 guided me the whole way here. And then January 11th was the 20th anniversary. And January 10th, the day before, my auntie Janet, his sister, was struck with a car and killed. And then the 15th, just days after, his brother, my uncle Peter, died of cancer. So in my mind, I was trying to make new memories around this time of year. And then it ended up just
Like this.
but I went to Tulum and I was with a friend. And the first night, one butterfly came in the window and slept above my head the whole night. And then we had to escort it out. And the next night, a different butterfly came and stayed over my head overnight. And I knew because after my mom passed, right? So those were obvious to me anyway, I could feel, that my spirits and ancestors are with me, and they show up in the most interesting and miraculous ways. And so that was the first thing. And then I lived near a lagoon where there are crocodiles. And I was there for 2 months. I didn't see any crocodiles. I kept hearing about them, but I was coming up on the edge of the drop. And I went out one day and there were two crocodiles in the lagoon and one was in the water and it just looked, we just had a moment and it just swam away. And I said, okay, so I went inside. I was like, what do crocodiles represent? Kind of, And then I hit the bottom and I was right at the bottom. I honestly didn't know that I was going to pull through this one, right? And it wasn't just this experience, it was 20 years of shit that I haven't actually had the time to process because I've been surviving it all these years. And so really dark, really, really, really low. And a little gecko showed up out of nowhere. It stayed near the head of my bed. It did not leave for 3 days, my three worst days, until I met Chloe. Chloe was the only person that actually responded to, I was putting out for this retreat, and she's the only one that responded. She was a local in Cancun and she ended up being, she's my friend here, and she was the exact person I needed to meet in that exact moment with the exact message that I needed. And, I came home after meeting her and my little gecko friend was there. And in the morning, he just died next to my bed. He was just gone, but he was there with me through those lowest moments and was literally the only thing that was keeping me going because, and there are so many more after that. Well, there's a reason I have an owl on my arm, right? But sometimes we forget these things.
I believe it's very easy for us, even if we're aware, and especially I think if we think that we have a lot of awareness, it's so easy to forget all of these things and actually move through life still on autopilot. And I know that a lot of people don't want to hear this when they're like in the healing coaching space. We all seem to know so much, but then again, we still move on our old programming so often. And these little signs, the animals, or whatever you experience. For me, it's numbers, it's stars. So there's so many things that come up in music or whatever are the reminders for us to say, hey, this is not just happening to you. But we do need the constant reminder, the constant kind of confirmation of the field that we're actually working together here, and it's not like you sitting there and needing to experience everything that's thrown at you, but there is kind of a communication going on, but we forget all the time. It's, I don't know, the planet of forgetting. It's named for a reason. It's quite funny too, for us to always
Yeah.
dive deep into these moments of being not in control or being in victimhood or however we want to call it, and then being able to step out of it and say like, oh, but there's something that keeps me going. It's my choice to go.
The other side of this
Yeah.
is there's the forgetting and then there's the complete bypassing of I'm not going to take any accountability for my own life.
Written in the soul
I'm not going to
contract.
look, but it's like you were saying, and I totally agree, is life is way too messy, complicated, and nuanced to have these black and white approaches to everything, right? And numbers, yeah, that's what it was. The dad download, I don't even know what to call it because everything is too woo now, but whatever came through that when I was trying to eat, and it was this nagging pull up this undergraduate paper that I wrote. And I'm like, why would it's 2017. Anyway, I pull up this research paper that I wrote. I was doing an intern placement at the women's shelter that I stayed in with my son, left, did a lot of work with fundraising, organizing a whole bunch of stuff over the decades, and did a placement there working with the women leading group. And so I open up this paper and the date was December 6th, 2017. And it wouldn't have meant anything to me, except I had just been checking when my visa status expires and when I crossed into Mexico. I crossed the US Mexico border on December 6th this year. And I was looking at these dates and then looking at this research paper that is actually a gold mine for content and whatever else, but just even for my own reflection of, wow, okay, this is continuity. This isn't an entire rupture, right? The PhD as it was, yeah, that's a rupture. But the through line, the work that I've been doing, is not new. It's been decades coming through, and then it's just taking shape in forms that I honestly believe are going to be far more beneficial than in academic spaces anyway, right? And
I agree with that. And I think you mentioned something very, very interesting to me, which is with the whole like evolve into our next version and quantum jump and like who I was yesterday is not of any matter for me today. All of that again, particularly true for me. But on the other side, there is, and I feel we have forgotten that too, or it's kind of like not in trend. There is so much wisdom to be found in your old work. And like you said, looking at an old research paper you did, or like when I go through some old notes or some old outlines for programs, I'm like, that's actually cool stuff. I still stand by it. And I feel we kind of copy pasted fast fashion onto the wellness and coaching and spirituality industry as well, thinking we always have to create something new and we never can talk about the old stuff because it's old and therefore it's kind of outdated and therefore it has no value. And that's totally not true. And I feel it's kind of
oh,
coming full circle when we go back to things that we did a long time ago and we can actually still see the value in them. That is actually meaning so much about your relationship with you, as well as this like there's no actual time and space. So what we're discussing anyway when it comes to old and new.
yeah, absolutely. And so you journal a lot, right?
I did for a very long period of my life and then it just suddenly stopped and I never went back to the actual writing. Now I do voice journaling. But oftentimes I kind of dictate it into my phone and then it's again written out somewhere. And a lot of my content comes from this. Not all of that, of course, because I don't want to share my diary on the internet completely, but
Yes, exactly.
we don't want to do that. And there's a reason for it. But often there's like one or two sentences where I'm like, and that might be from last week, or that could be from a few years ago and I stumble upon a note, and that still sparks something. And that is for me particularly interesting in a period of time where all the coaches, again, like you said before, we get so many coaches that tell us some basic stuff that we could have read in a Google Doc 5 minutes long and not pay a few
Yeah.
dollars for. But if you look at your own notes and that sparks an interest, for me, that is so much, that holds so much value in a world that says, like, you need to do this and this and this to create viral content or to sell your offers and your retreats. And instead
Yeah.
of that, I think if we're just staying by our wisdom, that is so much more magnetic.
Yes, and fulfilling, right? And even, so trial reels of, you need to do this, this, and this, and this, and this. And I got this free download hooks, blah, blah, blah. And it's not working. I found a new way to use it
You
that is
use them?
so much better.
Mhm.
Yes, but I'm not trying to go viral, right? That's not I'm not an influencer. I don't want brand deals. I'm not trying, I don't need 1 million followers. That's my dream and my goal is not to create content all day, and that's just that's not for me. So all of these trending hooks and trial reels and photos and everything, nothing was working, nothing was sticking. I wasn't listening to anybody's advice. I just was doing my own thing. And then I had 2 trial reels that got 1,000 views each, and that's great for me. But it was more valuable to understand what messaging was actually resonating with the people that I want to connect with.
Mhm.
And then the demographics, those to be able to go in the back end and see, for especially for a new business where it's okay, I know what my dreams are, I know what my passions are. I haven't yet been able to refine who my target market is.
Yes.
But being able to have those analytics is that's who my message is resonating with, So
Isn't it?
trial reels are great for both, I guess. Just a lot of this stuff that's working for people that are selling, you know, $200, it's inundated and it gets overwhelming. I actually have to take time away because otherwise it's, my God, it's so much. This is worse than the commercials on TV as a kid.
Yes, and
But
it depends on what you do sell and what's the value that you stand for. Because I've never been able to bring myself to this kind of selling because I've always gotten the ick when I'm just reading it. Like you say, it's like really worse to even be on the other side, on the consumer side, and I'm like, no way I would ever do that. So for me, selling has to be in integrity, and therefore all the blueprints that you could use for a fitness shake, they are not working for something that deep. And
yeah,
you need to kind of find your own language, your own messaging that you actually can stand by and that actually reflects you so that your magnetism can come through. And that is, for me at least, I think it's not possible in like copy paste Alex Hormozzi's last hook. That might be working for him very well. Yeah, but if I do it, it's just not going anywhere. And that's totally fine. So it's more about,
yeah,
for me, the phone is always a black mirror. And whenever I realized that from one of the coaches that I was with, I'm like, ah, cool. Okay, this is showing me something. Like you say, this is reflecting to me like, who is my message resonating with? And that again tells me something about me. And then we can go play that game back
yeah,
and forth and you really get something out of it. But it's not, I want to get all of your stuff, like you said. And I think that's something that I would love to kind of come back to because it's happening so often. Coaches trying to sell you their support and their stuff. But where's the integrity in trying to sell you a 10K program when you actually open up and be vulnerable as much as you can and say like, hey, I'm at a low point. I don't have enough to sustain my life. And then somebody comes and tries to sell you something like this. That gives me the ick. I would never want to do it. And that's the reason why I think people like us don't make as much money in the first place. It kind of takes a little longer until it's worked itself up because there's so many tactics we're not using because it's just out of integrity. And it takes a little
yeah,
longer when you're not shouting out completely loud into the void and actually take from people. But if you offer and wait until the right person comes. The way nature
yeah,
offers a little water and then the birds come when they're thirsty. It's kind of a hint of me. But kind of that's the way that I see how we can kind of work through all the bypassing of the spiritual industry that seems to be so over enlightened, but then again does things like you described on a regular basis. So I feel a contradiction here that not so many people
yeah,
talk about, unfortunately.
yeah. I would have to agree. You were saying something and I wanted to come back to it and I forgot. And I even brought a notepad.
I sometimes think I should do that too, because there's like these conversations are going into so many different ways, and then it's like there was
It's
something
the
I wanted to
it's
come
the
back to.
writer in me, the academic. I thought it was actually the writing, the old. So I've journaled since I was 8 and I have decades worth. They're all still back in Canada because I only brought a handful with me. But some of my poetry from the ages of 13 to 15, looking back on those, I actually started working on a writing project called The Goddess Replies because the poems they're not pretty, they're not polished, they are raw, they are real. And then with the insight that I have at 43 as empty nest, single parent, grandmother, it's all really weird. If anybody wants to know, it's really weird. But to look back on that, and like you were saying, whether it's been a week, 2 years, 2 decades, whatever it is, they end up being the archives of our life, right? And your voice notes. I recently started doing that. My notes app, my iPad, I have shit everywhere all the time, but it just comes out of me and then go back and look at it and pull out the little the little pearls. Okay, that's, or even, I don't know, have you ever done this? You just see a book because I know you have a beautiful, beautiful library. You just pull open and right there is
Most times I have like 15 books and I'm reading simultaneously and I'm reading them like today I think I'm reading a little bit in here because that's the message that I need and then I put it away for a few weeks and go to another one. So that's kind of the and I do it with all my healing books too. So if there is anything
yeah,
that I feel wants to be moved through, I'll look at one of my energy medicine books and I'm opening at a random page and it of course always fits. So that's
yeah.
another way of communicating with the universe. And I love that you kind of bringing the connection to our journals because it's the same thing. It's kind of like a past version speaking to you and sharing something with you.
When my daughter was pregnant, I pulled out my journals from when I was pregnant with her. I guess it kind of makes sense, right? The maternal whatever. And it brought up a lot of stuff that I wasn't really ready to bring up. And I ended up projecting some of that onto her. And we had a little bit of a fight. And however, it was really important at that time. And it still is, right? My daughter and I are constantly working through what happened to us and what that did to her and what that did to me. And there are certain things in life that are come to back to forgiveness. They are not forgivable. Certain things in this life are just they're not forgivable.
I agree with you. For a very long time I was kind of this like, no, I don't want to go into all of the there's an evil side too. But then again, there is dark energy, however you want to call it. And I think we all interpret it differently, but there are things that you can kind of explain with your logic, maybe with your big heart, and then there are things that are not explainable on a human level. It's just no.
One of my therapists early on, sure, we were working through, and she said, "You have to stop trying to make sense of things that will never make sense." We've been able to recently have conversations where she's been able to tell me, "I felt like you abandoned me." And I can hold that space for her and we
Mm.
can talk through, why she's so confused. But it happens all the time. And I thought I was alone until right before I started the PhD program. I started
You realize you're not.
no, it is happening to women all over the world for centuries. I was sitting there in this surrounded by these systems, by these social workers, custody access assessment, all of these people, you're not a good mom because you don't have pictures of your kids hanging on your wall. And like, but they're in my wallet, they're in my heart, they're in my phone. Just having everything picked apart.
Believe so. I think it's very beautiful that you and your daughter are able to speak about the tension, about all of the confusion that
Yeah.
is just naturally there when you go something through something that logically there's no explanation for, that you cannot understand from a compassion point either because it's just like it's
No.
beyond anything. So you have, but still we need to find a way to work through the things that are unspeakable. And
But I'm starting to, yeah, gather my strength. I have a year and a half left before I file, before the statute of limitations is up. I filed all the reports with all the right people before I left, but of course they're not doing anything that they say they're going to do. It's all just being buried, buried, buried. But in the meantime, more complaints are coming in, and there is this collective movement, especially with Epstein and all of this stuff. We are getting really sick and fucking tired of this shit, and like this man hurts other women. I am not the first. There's no fucking way. And then even one night I was laying there and it just, I mean, I think you will understand because you are also so sensitive. It just hit me in the gut, spread through my whole body and just burst into tears because the collective of what this individual and his cronies have done. And I wanted it to stop. And so bringing it forward, it wasn't even about me entirely. It was about stopping this man and these men from doing this to anybody else.
yeah,
No, no.
there's any I don't want to say beauty, but I hope you get what I mean. In situations like these that are beyond comprehensible in any way, is that I feel what you just said, the whole collective awareness that comes through of like, yes, I wanna stand up for myself, but also I wanna stop this from going on. That there's kind of a collective care coming up in situations that are beyond dark, which is beautiful in its own very way, because so often I feel we as a society have gotten so numb that we look away from so many things that are not going the way they should. And
Yeah.
to see that people still have strength to stand up and say like, no, that's not how it's going to work. Even though I'm tired, and even though it's hard, and even though I'm like kind of rough bottom, I still don't quit. I still don't shut
Yeah.
up about this. I think that is a strength. That is a value that should be so much more valued and spoken about, because it's what actually helps us heal at a collective level from all the believable, scary, shitty stuff that is happening all the time. It's like all seems to be so nice with all the people who are awakened and in the healing space, and then the coaching and then the supporting people space, and then again it's not. And it's not.
Because this shit isn't all love and light,
No.
right? Like,
It would be so nice if it is. Yeah, I'm really down for the love and light version of Earth. So, but we're not there yet. So there's work to do, and we have to speak up about it, and we have to like share the uncomfortable stuff as well, and really make people aware that it that cannot go on like this, because there's so much momentum to the old way of things. I don't want to say working, because it's not working. The old way of covering up or of just blindfolded going through life that need to be changed.
yeah. Well, even just having awareness and knowledge, right? Because I love academia for the knowledge, for the learning, for all of it, right? Because knowledge is power. It's the institutional structure that I was unaware of at the time
Mm.
that makes this dynamic so possible. But if people don't come from the same kind of background and they don't know and they don't understand what is happening, things can happen. And then there's so much guilt around that, especially for capable, intelligent women. And it's because we are capable and intelligent that we are targeted.
It's a backward way. There's so many things going backward.
Yes, I'm learning what it is to be safe for the first time in my life, like physically safe. And so I'm now at a place where I'm not in survival mode trying to figure out how I'm going to pay the rent, how I'm going to eat. I'm actually now in creative mode and being able to take in the beauty of where I am. And I've wanted this my whole life. I wanted this my whole life. And yeah, it
And now it's there, and you can enjoy it and like kind of recalibrate your body to feel safe. That is so beautiful. I thank you. I thank you for sharing that. And I thank you for being so open and like so vulnerable about all the stuff that happened, which sounds like a crazy three-part movie, actually.
I have so many writing projects in the works.
I love that. And I will link your Instagram below so that people can connect with you, and that there's,
Yeah, I love
you
that.
know, can go deeper and learn more about you. And my God, so much luck and success with the retreats and with this like being really in contact with people. That's so needed and still so rare. So I love that very much. And how beautiful for all of the people who are joining you for that, because what a beautiful experience that will be.
Yes, I'm looking forward to it.
Yeah.
So thank you so much for thank you so much. Thank you.